Welcome new and old friends, my name is 242, and today 2 got us true creepy Reddit stories. These are Let's Not Meet and Creepy Encounter stories. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, and comment to tell the great algorithm that others might also like this channel. With all that being said, turn off your lights, make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. Lyft driver followed me onto campus by Anon2884. I, 21 female, had just started applying for colleges in my area, and I needed to go on campus to take a test for my classes. I had recently gotten into a car accident. My car was completely totaled, unfortunately. So that means I need to use something cheap and easy. Uber and Lyft are my go-tos in that sort of situation. However, unfortunately, Uber is more often the expensive one between the two. In both apps, you're able to put up a profile picture to help the drivers identify you easier. I use this feature. This is important to remember as I'm white, but in the photo, I look a little more tan because of the lighting. Growing up, I was always told to be wary and safe when I went out in public. With that in mind, I can remember that the driver was an older gentleman in his 60s, I think. My apartment complex can be difficult to navigate since the GPS doesn't like to take you to the right building. I opted to use the text feature on the app to help my driver find my building easier. He read it. Keep this in mind. Once he found me and I got in, he began the usual niceties you have when you meet a stranger. He asked me if I was Hispanic, to which I replied no, that I'm white. He suddenly became quite talkative and started complimenting me a lot for not getting upset. The ride was about 10 minutes, and within that time span, he asked me if I was married or had any kids, if I had a boyfriend, whether or not I lived alone, and if I had any pets. I'm typically very alert when I'm alone with someone, and this started setting off bells in my head. I was vague and honest with my answers, which could have gotten me into trouble. Once our ride ended, he told me that since I was such a nice girl, he'd buy me my lunch. He gave me 20 and tried to continue talking to me while I was getting out of the car. I took the 20 because I truly needed it and I was afraid to make him angry, but I wasn't interested in continuing the conversation with this guy. After I finished my test, my proctor pulled me aside and gave me a piece of paper with a phone number on it. Turns out, it was my Lyft driver's phone number. He tried to enter the building and talk to me while I was taking my test. Thankfully, my proctor had my back and got the campus police officers to escort him off the property since he wouldn't leave. I never saw him again. Unfortunately, I had already given him a good rating, so I continued to get him on occasion. I always canceled that ride as soon as I realized it was him. I never reported it because I was afraid of causing waves, but if I get him again, I'll be sure to report him. I'm not sure if that would hold up anymore, since it was a few months ago. My friends and I were bopping to a song we have all heard 1,000 times, but this time one of the lyrics was completely different. I was the only one who noticed. Rider from Hell by IOE29K to my dentist. When I was 15, I had a crush on this girl from a different city who, unfortunately, had their house burned down by a meth-addicted neighbor. She called me immediately to let me know what happened, and I told her I would go as soon as I can. I really meant it because after I got off the phone, I changed clothes and sneaked out of the house. I think it was already 3 or 4 a.m., and I have no means of going to the bus stop unless I walk. The bus stop was pretty far from where I live, so I switched between running and walking. If I get tired, I'll sit down for a couple minutes at the cold pavement before walking/running again. While resting under one of the light posts at the other side of the road, I saw someone riding a motorcycle at a very slow pace. I can also hear music from the motorcycle. I guess they saw me sitting because they turned and drove towards my direction. I did not think it was strange. I kept sitting there until the motorcycle stopped in front of me. On the motorcycle was a dude, might be in his 30s, skinny, bald, and pale. Tied to his neck is a rope attached to a small radio player. He was playing music, but it was a very low volume. "Where are you going?" he asked. Me, having absolutely no sense of stranger danger, told him I'm going to the bus stop. He said, "You won't catch the bus if you're just walking." I noticed this dude is very giggly. It's like every time he talks, he finds it funny/silly. I told him it's okay, I can walk very fast. "But it's dark," he told me. "If you want, I can give you a ride," he said with this very wide smile. Since I'm very stupid and I just wanted to get to my friend as soon as I can, with a sparkle in my eye, I said, "Sure." I hop on the motorcycle and we began cruising the streets. While riding, I noticed that he makes sudden, short breaks that cause me to move closer to his back. While I pull myself away, he'll make these types of breaks again. Couple minutes in the ride, and I realized he went the wrong way. I told him he missed the correct turn, but he was not responding. He turned the volume of his radio higher and drove faster instead. That's when I thought this guy will do something horrible to me. I'd rather break my kneecaps than being killed by this dude. I jumped out of the moving motorcycle. I landed on my feet, but lost balance and fell on my bum. I couldn't stand because my knees were shaking and I had gashes on my palms. The dude shouted, "You motherfucker," as his motorcycle wiggled, almost crashing. I thought to myself, if the guy turns around, I'm absolutely going to die today. Thankfully, he kept driving away. Even limping, I managed to walk towards the bus stop. I still went and visited the girl to make sure she's okay. I also had my first kiss that day. My biggest fear was never dying or what happened after death, but being forgotten by all. It took many years and more sacrifices than I could name, but at least I'll go down in history as the reason Norway brought back capital punishment. Why I Can't Go Swimming Anymore by Maleficent Care 8314. Hello, I wish to tell you where my fear of going in water comes from. It's something I've never been ashamed of, but I've never told the real details to anyone. To begin with, I never had a fear of water when I was younger. I was a good swimmer with a lot of imagination who loved The Little Mermaid, Disney and Anderson's version. But after meeting someone when I was 13 years old, it changed everything. Now, a little introduction to my childhood to understand the context. My mom couldn't have a baby because she had an illness, so her and her husband adopted me when I was a baby. I never had difficulties regarding that and had a happy childhood being an only child. They are my mother and father, that's all. However, one day they divorced. My dad had an affair with a younger woman. She got pregnant and he told my mother when the pregnancy was almost done. I was 9 and it broke the relationship I had with my dad and gave me insecurities about being unloved by him. My parents stayed friends only for me for many years, and spent half of the summer holidays with one and then the other half with the other. This summer, I was with my dad, his new wife, and my half-little brother, and I hated it. being a teenager who despised this new side of my family and being forced to go with them to the beach. I was always grumpy and dramatic. It was a small nudist beach, a new thing my father discovered while having a new partner. But I didn't really care since I could wear a swimming suit. One day, my dad came back to us with a guy about 50 who introduced himself as an English teacher. Let's call him Alex. Usually I have good grades, but I wasn't very good in English, which wasn't my first language. So my dad told Alex, who agreed to teach me a bit and help me do my summer homework. I was happy, seeing there was an opportunity not to have my father help me do them. So, the next day, Alex came back to us and helped us do a few exercises while my dad went away to go swimming. After an hour or so, Alex proposed to go in the water, and I accepted. I said to my father's new wife where I was going and followed Alex. He gave me a tuba and a mask to watch the fishes. Now, I know it was stupid, and I was well aware of stranger danger, but I was happy to have a distraction and didn't think this guy was dangerous because he got introduced by my father. There weren't a lot of waves and the sea was so clear. I remember watching in fascination all the colorful fishes around me. I followed Alex without difficulty, and we turned around some big rocks. There, he gave me the sign to go up and told me we could rest here. Like I said at the beginning, I was a good swimmer, so I put the tuba away from my mouth and said that I wasn't tired at all. I don't know if he didn't hear me or didn't care, because the next moment I felt his hands around my hips forcing me onto his naked lap. I panicked. My head got under the water while this guy was pinning me back against his front. I don't remember if I had the tuba back in my mouth, but my feet couldn't touch the sand at the bottom, and I couldn't get to the surface. I thought I was about to drown. I was so scared. I don't even know if he was hard or just trying to touch me. I kicked and struggled until he let go of me. I climbed on the rocks and got onto the shore before going back to the beach on foot. The rest of the day, I was silent, but nobody seemed to notice. Except during the evening, my mom called me on my phone, and she immediately knew something was wrong. I briefly explained to her what happened, and she told everything to my father, who confronted Alex the next day. We never contacted the police, and I never met him again. Maybe he wasn't an English teacher to begin with, and was looking for an excuse to meet a naive teenager. The moment Alex grabbed me was so quick, maybe 20 seconds, but it left a huge scar on me. I can't go totally underwater while being unable to touch the bottom without panicking. I don't swim anymore. I can't look at pictures taken underwater, and I'm weary of men. Not just because of that, but it didn't help. I know it could have ended way worse, and that's the only thing I'm glad for. Thank you for listening. As I said before, some of my friends know about this story, but I never told them the details. Even my family doesn't really know. We are lucky to live in this great nation. Lucky we were born in this land. Lucky our home is still standing after the bomb. I tell myself this every day as I discard another clump of hair or spit another tooth into the mug, emblazoned with my country's flag. There's a Man in the House, by Anonymoose. This happened about 2 years ago when I was a 19 female and had just moved out of my student accommodations into an actual flat with my friend group of 6. The night we moved in, it was just me and one of the girls I'm close friends with, let's call her Lucy, and I had my boyfriend over at the time, let's call him Alec. The other people who were moving in 2 weeks later as they were all on various holidays or visiting home. So, it was just the 3 of us. Lucy was in her room and Alec and I were smoking a joint in bed watching kung fu movies. Him and I started to notice a man around 300 pounds and 6 feet, pacing outside our window and looking in occasionally. We're on a basement floor at this time, but the windows are at ground level. Okay, that's fucking weird, but we'll just make sure that the windows are locked. 20 or so minutes pass and everything seems okay until Lucy runs into my room and says, "Babe, there's a man in the house." We left the door unlocked by accident. Fucking chills. I'm like, what the fuck do you mean there's a man in the house? Alec is frozen solid. Me and Lucy go into the hall and there's a huge man who we saw looking in the windows in our hall. We ask, "What are you doing here?" And he pulls out his phone and shows us a text message from an unsaved number with our address written on it and something about people being inside. What the fuck? He tells us he's looking for his girlfriend, that she lives here, and we're like, no the hell she does not. Please remove yourself from our house. He says okay, and then he'll phone his girlfriend. He turns his phone low volume and speaks to another man on the phone who is clearly not his girlfriend. With more urgency this time, we tell him to get out of our house and he says okay. He leaves, we lock the door, and everyone is shaking. He is still on the phone to this man outside and they're speaking a language we don't understand, but we can hear him getting angry. I tell Alec to please make the scary man go away, so he goes outside and tells him to shift away from our doorway as he's really scaring us. He says okay, and his taxi is here. He walks up to a dead-end street where no taxi can go. Again, what the fuck? We tell our upstairs neighbors we had met earlier that day about the whole ordeal. We'll call them Charlotte, Matt, and Rob. They inform us the same man had tried to come into their house, insisting their girlfriend lived there. Charlotte already had a boyfriend, who we knew of and had also met that day. Rob had more balls than all of us and threatened him with a knife the time he came to their house, and he never bothered them again. Over the next couple weeks, the man would occasionally come back and look in our bedroom windows. Alec was there most of the time. I'm so glad for that. I have no doubt he'd tried the door again, but it was always locked after that. Oh yeah, huge scary man in my hall? Let's not meet again. When they explained that any dead animal I touch would be returned to life, but wouldn't be healed, I laughed and said that sounded more like a blessing than a curse. Then I put on my leather jacket and felt something warm and wet oozing down my back. Someone I Met Online by August Omethus. Strongly recommend you read my previous post, Creepy Coworker/Stalker. These two creeps are so similar, I start to wonder if there's a training school for creeps. I, 25 female, have recently moved to a new city, which is something a lot of people from my home city are doing. Thus, there is a specific group on Telegram for people from my home city to find housemates/rental buddies. Ben reached out to me after I posted my expectations, must be a 2-bed, 2-bath condo, budget, etc. in the group, saying he is interested. He said he wanted to meet up first. I figured it was a good idea to meet a few times before going house hunting together, so we set up a lunch meeting. During lunch, the only thing that annoyed me is him saying he hoped I would lower my budget. I felt like this was a waste of my time as clearly our expectations weren't compatible. However, things went weird after lunch. We walked towards a subway station. He kept tapping on my shoulder occasionally. Although I felt the frequency was weird, I convinced myself that maybe that's just how he is generally. Based on our previous chit-chat, I learned where Ben lived and he's supposed to get off at Station A and switch to another line. Well, I would get off at Station B, 2 stops after Station A, and switch to another line. Because I'm quite new to the city, I didn't realize he had not gone off at Station A until I had to get off myself. He followed me off and switched lines with me. while trying to start different conversations with me. One stop before the actual station I live nearby, I told Ben I had to get off here to do some shopping, and I was ready to say my goodbyes. Ben followed me off again and went to the grocery store with me. I kept telling him he could leave and I'm fine shopping by myself, but he insisted to stay. Every time I turned around the grocery store, Ben was standing really close to me. Like, if he had boobs, they would be in my face. I felt super uncomfortable and just grabbed 2 4-liter bottles of water and went to the cashier. When I was paying, Ben grabbed my water and offered to take those to the Airbnb I was staying at. I tried to decline politely, but he wouldn't hand me back my water. I didn't want to have physical touch with him, so I didn't try and take the water back with force, and kinda let him take those water to my Airbnb. My bad, I know. Ben made his way into the common area of my Airbnb. It was a shared house type. I didn't even invite him in. Then he kept trying to start more conversations with me. At several points, it was completely silent, but he still wouldn't leave. In the end, after hours, I had to ask him to leave. Days after, he still kept texting me weird messages, which I didn't reply at all to. I blocked him after I moved out of that Airbnb, as I didn't want to trigger him when he knew where I lived. The last thing she saw before the power went out was a message on her computer screen that read, "Don't turn around." But it was already too late, as she felt a cold breath on the back of her neck. And with that, our time together is coming to an end. I do hope you enjoyed these stories, and I like to thank the writers who let me read their stories. I really hope everyone stays safe. Some of these were harder to read than others. The one about the beach, I totally get why she trusted him. I'm happy she got away, but sad that she no longer can swim because of the bad memory. But, truth be told, I've always absolutely loved swimming. Also, I know it's my opening, but I truly mean it. Make sure your doors and windows are locked. A strange man in my house is not how I'd want to start living in a new place. I very quickly would be finding a new one where the creep didn't know where I lived. Now, if you enjoyed these stories, hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you're new, well, subscribe and turn that pretty little bell to all notifications. And also, of course, share with anyone else who might enjoy this content. And I would love a comment. Tell me what you think, what stories you would like me to read in the future. Of course, use the phrase Ocean Dread so I know you got this far. If you'd like to help in other ways, I do have Patreon and YouTube memberships, where for $1 a month you get early access. And if you'd like to do a one-time donation, I also have PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee. All the links, including the ones to my socials and website, are down below in the description box. But as always, guys, thank you for watching and listening. It really means the world to me. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.